The man stood over Elizabeth. He emphasized that the girl was no longer trembling with fear today. Perhaps she had gotten used to it, but that didn't matter. This could be their last embrace. Elizabeth was kneeling before the throne, on which sat a man wearing a crown. The girl confessed that she was carrying the child of Sir Regent Kirsten. It was the biggest lie she had ever told, and it was her only chance to save her life. The girl was bound in chains. Her pregnancy and the birth of her child were the only things that could save her life now. Thanks to that man, she could stay alive. And it was Elizabeth's last chance. The man and the girl stood in the middle of the banquet hall. They held hands, but in reality, the groom said that they were just helping each other and that it meant nothing more. It was a marriage of convenience. Elizabeth sat on the bed next to her husband. She was worried that she couldn't get pregnant, so she thought she couldn't fulfill her part of the contract. This bothered and worried her. The girl kissed Regette, who was asleep. She said goodbye to him because the unbearable feeling of guilt prevented her from living peacefully. Her husband deserved a much better life without the burden of her. The midwife entered the room and called His Majesty. She greeted the king and informed him that his wife was pregnant. But there was no joy on the monarch's face. Something was troubling him. The man was very angry. After all, his wife had become pregnant and had decided to run away without even knowing it. He ordered that no one be allowed to leave the city and that all the gates be closed. In addition, the guards and city security were to be reinforced. He intended to join the search himself. His wife must have been weak, given her condition. Therefore, there was no time to waste. The monarch could not allow a pregnant woman to escape. 700 years ago, the mighty and terrible wrath of the dragon swept across the continent. One of his 5 disciples, whom the dragon had taught and mentored, betrayed his mentor. He sided with the people. The dragon's best disciple used the knowledge he had gained from his teacher against him. It was thanks to this that humanity managed to defend itself and defeat the dragon's tyranny. And the country founded by the wizard began to be called Arkan. But the years of prosperity were cut short by an invasion of barbarians from the north. The hooves of their horses trampled the grandeur of the sacred empire. The once mighty state collapsed under the onslaught of the attackers. At that time, the princess of the once powerful country was fleeing from her pursuers. She understood perfectly well that if they caught up with her, she would have to say goodbye to life. Her fate spun too quickly and rushed forward relentlessly. In Benelli's military camp, the soldiers rose at the sound of the alarm. Rumors spread that a woman, a fugitive from Arcana, had killed Sir Roderick. The orders of the commanders who had raised the soldiers to search for her could be heard everywhere. The woman was hiding in one of the camp tents. She couldn't believe that she was now hiding from her pursuers right in the heart of an enemy army. And before that, she had risked her life to get here. 2 hours earlier, she had fallen into the hands of an unknown man. He was impressed that a woman had dared to sneak into a military camp. Either the girl was too brave or simply insane. The soldier pressed her against the wall of the tent. He was curious how this girl from Arkan, as indicated by her white hair, had ended up here, and whether the runaway princess was as beautiful as this stranger. Elizabeth thought it was time to use her powers. Her magical abilities would help her in this difficult situation, which could end very painfully and fatally for her. The girl concentrated on the magic circle. Suddenly, her attacker's body burst. She was covered in blood. It was unexpected even for her. Elizabeth did not understand how she had done it, because she had not even touched the magic circle or activated it. She reassured herself that he was a knight from an enemy country, and that she had simply wanted to protect herself. But she had to think about how to escape, because if she was found here, she would be taken back to the palace. And in her moment of greatest despair, she remembered her brother and her childhood. Back then, her brother had taught her how to use her magical abilities. He had taught her that the magic circles on her body were meant for attack and defense. She just had to touch the mark on her body and say her brother's name. But the mark on her leg was incomprehensible to her brother. He said that Lisa would learn its purpose when the time came. The girl begged to stay with her brother, but he said that if she did, she would die. She would rather be a simple slave than die in this crazy barbarian land. Lisa asked her brother to go with her. She didn't feel like such a great magician as her brother. And if he stayed and accepted death at the hands of his enemies, she would be left alone in this world. They had to escape together. His duty as Emperor Arkan was to fulfill his duty as a monarch at any cost. Defending the castle and the citadel was his last task. They said goodbye. Andre sent his sister into a magical sphere. She had to survive. then Arkin would have hope of being reborn in the future. The boy told her to always remember this and to survive at any cost. The boy's voice echoed in Lisa's head. He ordered her to gather her strength and continue. She was the heir to the imperial family, and she had to survive, if only for her brother's memory. The girl realized that she had to get to the neighboring friendly country of Regal. There, she would be able to find support and protection. Suddenly, someone called her. The girl was confused. There should have been no one in the tent. It was unclear who had called her. However, a man was approaching her from the darkness. It couldn't be Roderick, because he was dead. It was the Archduke, Duke Kirsten. 3 years ago, a ball was held in the royal hall. It was held in honor of Andri Asika, the current emperor of Asika. Knights and ladies gathered and discussed something among themselves. Andri spoke with his sister. He asked if she was feeling well and if it would be better for her to stay in her room. The girl replied that because her brother had hidden her, people were saying things. People were saying that Andre had a relationship with his sister, who was his twin. She was upset that people were talking about them like that. However, her attention was soon drawn to a stranger. The stranger turned out to be Regan Kirsten. He was the commander of a squad of knights from the neighboring country of Benella. In addition, Kirsten was the emperor's stepbrother. Royal blood flowed through his veins. People said that the emperor's former wife might have had an illegitimate child somewhere, and the emperor at that time could not bring himself to do anything with the unwanted child. However, in the future, this would come back to him 100-fold. Kirsten became a great warrior and military leader. The emperor recognized his blood brother and gave him power. The Archduke was very useful on the battlefield. He was like a bloody wind sweeping across the battlefield. Day after day, he proved his worth as a commander and warrior. Everyone around him called this man a bloody demon of war, or they called him the emperor's personal dog. But whatever the case, cooperation with him could not bring anything good. Now the girl thought that when Kirsten remembered her face and their meeting at the ball, he would immediately recognize her as Princess Arcana. He would easily recognize her as the fugitive. Lisa thought it was all over. To her surprise, Kirsten ordered the soldier who heard the noise from the tent to go away and stay away. The girl looked in surprise at her sudden savior, who was on the side of someone unknown. The next moment, something happened that Lisa certainly did not expect to see. Kirsten knelt before the girl. He solemnly said that he welcomed Her Majesty Princess Arcana. He asked for forgiveness for his actions. He led the girl to his tent. The emperor's brother said that a girl could not walk around a military camp alone, and in such a state. Kirsten searched for something in his chest. The girl looked at him in confusion. Lisa was still sitting silently. She thought about how something had been released from her when the soldier threatened her. She felt a certain pleasure when her abuser was torn apart before her eyes. Kirsten's thoughts were interrupted by Kirsten. The man was holding a rag and asked if he could touch the girl. He wanted to wipe the blood from Lisa's face and body. The girl obediently gave her permission. Kirsten gently wiped the blood from the girl's body. Lisa thought that enemies were not treated like this. The man constantly apologized for every careless movement or touch that might offend the princess. When Kirsten finished, he called Reuben to the tent. The girl wondered if she would be able to escape. The man's respectful and courteous attitude gave her some hope of rescue. At the emperor's brother's call, a knight entered the tent. He looked at the girl in surprise and was sure that she was the one who had killed Sir Roderick. The knight could not understand what his master was doing. The man asked him to treat Lisa with more respect and not to speak nonsense in her presence. After all, she was a real princess and belonged to a noble royal family. Sir Kirsten explained that a member of the royal family could not be spoken to or treated like an ordinary woman. It would be Reuben's duty to serve her faithfully and respectfully. The girl sat sadly in the tent. She thought about her future life. If the emperor's relative wanted to do something bad to her, he could easily kill her. But why keep her alive? She glanced at the 2 guards standing at the entrance to the tent. They were talking about her, the last of the Arkan imperial family. The men could not understand why she was still alive. One of the soldiers said that a messenger had been sent to the emperor with news of the princess's whereabouts. The answer should arrive soon. His partner asked him to speak more respectfully about the rulers of Arcana. The soldier replied that Arcana had almost ceased to exist. The army had been defeated, and the capital was in their hands. The emperor was dead. Such a state no longer existed. Another guard warned him not to take it lightly. At that moment, the soldiers began to talk about the legend of how Arcana was founded. Lisa thought of her brother. He was the last defender of the empire, its shield and protector. But Andre was no longer alive. His farewell was both a farewell and a testament to Lisa. The girl wanted to cry from the grief and sadness that overwhelmed her, but the princess understood that now was not the time for that. The girl decided to act. First, she needed to gather as much information about her enemy as possible. This could save her life and allow her to live on to take revenge on her enemy. The soldiers near the tent dreamed of how soon the military campaign would end and they would return home from the campaign. But it was important that the Archduke was in a good mood. But the Emperor could prevent that. The guard said it was a pity when such a noble family of their country could be interrupted. The Emperor was very afraid of this and was very angry that he had no heirs. The Archduke was not entirely human. The soldier said that there was no woman in the whole kingdom who could withstand a half-dragon. The girl listened to their conversation and could not believe it. As a child, she had seen half-dragons in books. They were not even close to dragons. These creatures were described as very intelligent and very closed off from everyone else, and they could not control the dragon's rage that flowed through their veins. They easily fell into a fighting frenzy and then truly turned into mindless monsters. The girl thought with horror that her savior could be such a creature. However, he was not at all like them. 5 days later, Kirsten entered the tent accompanied by a woman. The stranger was holding a tray. The princess thought that they had brought her items to help her end her life. The man said that he had brought her a message from the Emperor. His Majesty was granting her the opportunity to end her life by suicide. She could choose the method herself. The choice was entirely hers. Kirsten emphasized that she could commit suicide, or she would be taken to the imperial capital and publicly tortured in front of a crowd, and then simply be beheaded. The choice was hers. The man explained that dying by suicide was the only option available to the last descendant of the ruling dynasty of a country that had lost a war and a conflict. It was a final gesture of respect, but all of Lisa's thoughts were still focused on the idea of escape, by any means necessary. She simply could not betray the memory of her brother and family. But Kirsten said that the Emperor had sent a message to the girl. The princess looked at her recent savior. She asked if he would take her to Benella if she did not dare to drink the poison or accept death in another way. The man assured her that he would fulfill her request. Moreover, he had received orders to bring her to the capital no matter what. The Emperor had ordered that the princess be delivered to the imperial court, dead or alive. This meant that even in the face of death, she had to be careful. Lisa held a knife in her hands. She understood that she had no chance, and the man was a principled and responsible person. His principles did not allow him to go against the orders he had received. She decided to end her life. But before that, she asked Kirsten if he would really deliver her body to the capital safely and unharmed. The man did not expect such a question. He did not think that such thoughts arise before death. The girl stabbed herself with a dagger. Kerr rushed to her. Lisa asked if he would really take her to the capital. The man was not thinking about that. He was trying to stop the blood flowing from the princess's shoulder and bring her to her senses. Kirsten held Lisa in his arms. He tried to calm the princess, but she said that she had to survive at any cost. It was her sacred duty to her brother and the ruling family of Arcana. The man sat in the room above the bed where Lisa lay. He thought about how this stubborn girl did not want to die a noble death. After all, she had simply run away at first, and now she wanted to kill herself. Kirsten and his friend were talking about Lisa. The Emperor's brother's friend wondered if she was the princess from the legends. Seeing her beauty, the men immediately understood why the ruler of Arcana had hidden her. Lisa woke up. She saw Lord Kirsten standing by her bed. The girl was surprised that he had been sitting there, but the Lord said that he had seen her pretending to be asleep. Kirsten tried to avoid conversation. The girl dared to ask if she should stab herself again with a knife so that she would finally die and stop causing trouble for him and Emperor Benelli. The man did not understand the question. The Lord leaned toward Lisa. He tried to calm the princess down. The man emphasized that she should take better care of her health, but Lisa was sure that she would die anyway. Lisa asked if Lord Kirsten had anyone. The man replied that he was not married. After all, the princess had heard the rumors circulating about him. The entire continent knew the secret of his origins. He doubted that there were parents anywhere on the continent who would want their daughter to marry a man who was not even fully human. This greatly disturbed all the noble families. He was born of the incestuous union of 2 races, humans and dragons. He was an unbalanced creature who did not even belong to the human race. The Lord had inherited the fighting madness of the dragons. This madness could only be controlled by periodically hunting and killing victims. It may have been just rumors, but she had heard that the Emperor was rushing the birth of his heir. The Lord replied that he did not kill young women for the sake of having an heir. The man could not even see traces of blood in the bed, and there was no mention of murder at all. The girl asked if the Lord knew that the blood of a former dragon apprentice flowed in her veins, whose magic had allowed him to defeat the monster in battle. Kirsten asked if she possessed magical abilities. She replied that she did and did not. There is no clear answer to this question. There were many legends that the rulers of Arcana passed the dragon's blood from generation to generation. The nobleman understood that, in a strange way, the girl had found something in common with him. He had heard legends about the descendants of the dragon who possessed magic. In his opinion, this was Lisa's way of trying to win his affection. Kirsten himself could not understand why the girl was making her life so difficult. She was risking her position greatly. In such a case, she could simply take her own life. The man replied that he could not help her. He asked her not to imagine anything because he had no such intention, and he did not want to make empty promises. These words confused her. Lisa asked if he would change his mind if she knelt before him. The Lord replied that this was an absurd statement and that it would not change anything. She tried to cry and move the Lord's heart. The Lord replied that he would feel uncomfortable if the princess knelt before him. The girl replied that in that case, she would commit suicide right now, right before his eyes. She asked Kirsten to stay with her for a while, even though he felt uncomfortable and confused. But if it was the order of the princess, a child of royal blood, then he could not disobey Lisa. Lisa fell asleep again. Her brother came to her in a dream. She apologized to him for the situation she found herself in. After all, she had no choice. The girl had to either become the Empress of Arcana or die. The girl told her brother that he could revive their country. Arcana existed thanks to his efforts. Without him, she was nothing. Her brother asked her to listen to what he had to say. He told her that she was much better than she thought she was. Lisa was actually worthy of much more. She deserved national recognition and admiration. The girl disagreed. She thought that if her brother had known about Lisa's intention to commit suicide, he would not have said that. But Andre asked her to return and bury his body properly. The dream ended. Kirsten had heard that the princess was ill, but not to such an extent. He analyzed his emotions and realized that something strange had happened to him when he first saw Lisa accompanied by her brother 3 years ago. At that time, the Lord compared Lisa to a woman who resembled a precious stone that he would never obtain. Their meeting took place at the most difficult moment of his life. At that time, Lisa seemed like a bright sun to him. His body felt like a ball of fire. He became very agitated after remembering their first meeting. He tried not to wake the princess, but silently enjoyed her beauty. Upon arriving in the capital, the girl asked him not to miss her too much. She asked Kirsten to think of it as his last battle. The Lord pretended not to understand what the girl was talking about. Lisa asked him not to think of her as crazy. She asked to spend one last moment with him because she felt safe and calm around Kirsten. The man did not object, but he was at a loss. The army returned to Benella. The time on the road passed very quickly. Upon arrival in the capital, Lisa and Kirsten had to part. This meant death for the girl. The Lord tried to come up with a solution. The soldiers set up camp for the night. The Lord promised that a separate tent would be pitched for the princess, but the girl protested. She said she could sleep anywhere. The man objected because Lisa had been feeling unwell until then, and if she fell ill again, she could stop and delay the army on its march. The princess felt that everyone was abandoning her. Lisa thought she should pull herself together. She remembered the lake she had seen on the way there. Kirsten noticed her uneasiness. The princess asked if she could swim there. The man replied that he had to accompany her. Something bad could happen on the way there. Lisa asked if he was worried that she might run away or if he wanted to protect her. The girl thought it would be very good if many people saw them together and noticed how they were walking to the lake in harmony. Her plan was slowly coming to life. Maybe it would save her. Kirsten said that the water was very cold. The girl could catch a cold even worse. Lisa assured him that everything would be fine. Lord asked the girl not to let water get on her wound. Lisa thought about the warmth she felt when Regent Kirsten was with her. She tried to recreate it in her mind. She asked him to turn away because she wanted to bathe completely. Lord asked her to behave more modestly because it was difficult for him to control himself. It was hard for him to understand that someone wanted to use him. But the nobleman could not help the girl in any way. Lisa stood completely naked in such a vulgar state in front of a man in a foreign, hostile country. And just like that, without knowing why, she gave herself to him. But Kirsten remained honest and noble. The Lord asked Lisa to wait before bathing. Tomorrow they would reach a settlement where there would be an inn where they could take a bath. After all, the stones in the water were slippery with moss. The girl insisted. She just wanted to freshen up a little after the journey. Kirsten assured her that it was worth waiting and not doing anything foolish. The girl wondered if the Lord would remain so noble. The plan in Benelli could not fail. It was her last chance. Everything around her inspired romance, but the Lord remained steadfast. He was an honest and noble nobleman, and therefore could not allow himself to act rashly. 3 months had passed since Princess Lisa had been taken to Lord Kirsten. She was staying in Benelli. Time dragged on for the princess. She spent her days alone. A servant ran up to Kirsten. He reported that the fourth prince, Yanok Sihat, from the kingdom of Ugal, was visiting the imperial palace. A red-haired man approached the Lord and Lisa. He asked Kirsten if he had captured Princess Arkna. The girl was very frightened. Ugal had always been a mortal enemy of her country. She remembered the numerous bloody raids of the barbarians. The fourth prince said that he had gone to Arkna to see the princess, but he was too late. The princess had fled the palace. He had heard many legends about her and her beauty, which her brother had hidden. But now he saw before him an enchanting girl with white hair and golden eyes. Before he died, it was worth seeing such beauty and enjoying this sight to the fullest. Over time, the prince was ordered to find Lisa and bring her to the capital. But the Lord did all the work for him and delivered her right into his hands, for which the barbarian was grateful to Kirsten. The barbarian reached out his hand to the princess. The girl warned him that he would die a terrible death if he dared to touch the magic circle on her body. The Lord confirmed Lisa's words and told him about the soldier's death. Sir Kirsten stood in the way of the barbarian prince. A quarrel arose between them. The Lord emphasized that he had received orders from the emperor himself to deliver the princess to Benella. He warned that in order to hand over the captive prince to Ugal, he needed an order from the emperor himself. And until the Lord received such an order, he would not give up the princess. To be more specific, the girl currently belonged to him. He looked into the princess's eyes and said that now they were free to go. The conflict was over. The emperor greeted the princess and the Lord. His Majesty was very pleased to see such guests. He sincerely welcomed the new arrivals. The emperor asked if the princess had been very difficult on the journey. His Majesty replied honestly that he had hoped for her nobility and expected her to end her life with her own hands. But the girl preferred to arrive in Benella alive. Kerr guessed that his ward was up to something. He remembered how Lisa had asked him to stay with her alone. She tried in every way to provoke him into making love and to attract his attention. The Lord told her that upon arrival in the capital of Benella, Lisa would be given to Prince Ugal, so she should not hope in vain for salvation. After all, the barbarians wanted Princess Arkan to die. The king said that the barbarians had agreed to take Lisa's body after she had been punished. They could not give them the princess, the last of the ruling family of Arcana, alive. It could end badly. The Lord asked how many days until the execution, and the king said 5 days. The emperor could not believe that the young ruler of Arcana was dead. If it weren't for his stubbornness, he could have survived. Kirsten thought that if he were in Andri's place, he would have tried to negotiate with the enemies in order to survive and rule the legendary country. It was not known what would happen next, but there would be a future. The emperor noticed that Reagan was thinking about something. He asked his subject why the Lord was distracted by something else when the ruler himself was speaking to him. The man replied that he was not thinking about anything. His Majesty said that his brother had never lied to him, so it was easy to see with the naked eye. Kirsten was confused by this question. He did not expect to be so easily read. The emperor asked if anything unusual had happened to the princess on the way, and if the Lord had noticed any strange behavior. The question stunned the young nobleman. He hesitated with his answer. The Lord replied that nothing unusual had happened, but before his eyes stood the image of Lisa when they were at the lake. He kept silent about her attempts to drag him into her game for life. His Majesty saw that something was going on in Kirsten's soul. The emperor sent his brother to rest, because even a half-dragon needs rest. Finally, he reminded him to review the list of brides. He emphasized to his brother that he could no longer remain a bachelor. The Lord had to marry and start a family in order to become the heir to Emperor Benella's throne. The emperor emphasized that he had not given his brother such a position for nothing. His grace should be treated with respect, although his plan was not entirely motivated by good intentions. Kirsten remembered his first meeting with the emperor. At that time, the nobleman had extended his hand to the future lord. The man did not want to lose such a specimen. After all, a half-dragon in human form was amazing. The Lord recalled that he had told his brother many times about the slim chance of having children at all. After all, the mother of his offspring would die before giving birth. A child was simply impossible. The emperor became angry. He said that he would personally select several strong and sturdy women for his brother, and that he should at least try. After all, Kirsten's mother had managed to carry him to term. The birth of Kirsten himself was already a miracle. The Lord became irritated and said that he would go rest. He could hear the emperor shouting behind him, angry at his behavior. Kirsten remembered his birth very painfully. At that time, his mother had been unable to give birth for a long time, and finally, a half-dragon was born. He tore open his mother's womb and simply crawled out. All pregnant half-blood women die this way. His foster brother simply had not seen it with his own eyes, and that was why he was so stubborn. Kirsten planned to return to his estate as quickly as possible. The Lord struggled with the desire to see Lisa one last time. Although he understood the futility of their meeting, the girl was in prison and would soon die. Kirsten himself could do nothing about it. Before putting the handcuffs on Lisa himself, Lord Kirsten wrapped a handkerchief around her wrists. This way, the pressure of the handcuffs on the princess's hands and skin would be reduced and would not hurt her. The barbarian prince visited Lisa's cell. He mocked her, saying that her brother had a very pretty face, but it couldn't compare to her beauty. The savage knew that before his death, Andre had passed his power on to Lisa. The girl guessed that he was talking about the magic circles. But how could the barbarian know about this? Only she and her brother could see magic. The prince was determined to test his guess before she died. The barbarian opened the door and wanted to enter the girl's cell. Lisa panicked because she couldn't defend herself. But the Lord appeared behind him, struck the prince, and he fell to the floor. The girl still couldn't understand the Lord's motives. She looked at her savior. Either this was the emperor's plan, or the Lord was simply a true knight. But whatever it was, she was grateful. The Lord was leaving the cell. Lisa told him that she couldn't lose him. The Lord was surprised. He certainly didn't expect to hear this from a prisoner. Kirsten left the girl he liked. The day of Elizabeth's death had come. The Lord did not want to stay in this city. He was returning to his estate. His servant was preparing his horse and loading the treasures given to him by the emperor. The servant asked the Lord if he wanted to go to the square and watch the execution. Kirsten had no desire to do so. Soon it was all about to begin. From early morning, a large crowd gathered in the square. No one wanted to miss the execution of the most beautiful woman in Archon. Soldiers kept a close watch on the crowd and the city. This event was to become the most popular topic of conversation among the drunkards and ordinary citizens of the city. There were rumors that she could even disappear during the execution itself, as she possessed magical abilities. The Lord could no longer listen to his servant and ordered him to check that everything was in place. The servant asked if the Lord wanted to see Lisa's last moments. After all, they had spent so much time together, and their relationship seemed very intimate. But the Lord did not want to watch the execution. The Lord ordered the servant to gather his belongings and catch up with him. He had no desire to stay or return to the capital. The servant could not believe his master's words. It was very cruel. Kirstana was caught up by a maid. She reported that the emperor wished to see his half-brother. It concerned Princess Arcana. Lisa addressed His Majesty before her execution. The girl repented for showing weakness of spirit and failing to end her own life. The people of Arcana had not even seen the princess, and she could not demand respect for herself. She turned away from her people and fled to save her life. But she had to survive to return and take care of her brother's grave, and also to calm the people after the invasion of the barbarians. She said she was carrying the child of Regent Kirsten. It was a lie, but it was the girl's last chance to survive. At first, the emperor did not believe what he heard, but Lisa confirmed her words. The emperor looked at the woman with whom Regent had spent the night. His Majesty asked if Lisa knew that Kirsten was half-dragon, and carrying the child of such a creature was not easy. The emperor asked how Lisa found out about her pregnancy, and whether the princess had any proof of this. The girl replied that her brother was a magician, and therefore she also possessed magical abilities. He used to check the condition of her body by controlling her magical energy flows, and she also has the ability to sense mana, and so Lisa could sense all the changes happening inside her. The emperor asked if the girl was saying this to save her life from execution. Lisa assured him that everything depended on His Majesty's decision. The ruler believed that the decision should be made by the Lord. At that moment, Kirsten entered the hall. He was accompanied by a servant. The Lord looks at the girl. He asks for a private meeting with Lisa before giving his answer to the emperor. His Majesty forbids it. The emperor calms down. He asks the Lord's servant, Sir Reuben, to tell him in detail everything that happened to his master during the entire journey from the military camp to the capital. Kier stands in the garden talking to Lisa. He does not quite understand why the girl did what she did. The princess asks for time to explain. The Lord asks why the girl lied about her pregnancy. Lisa openly stated that she did not want to die and had no intention of doing so. She must return alive to Arkan. She has a very important task there and must survive at all costs. The Lord replied that in that case, she must resolve the issue on her own and not involve him in her schemes. There must be a more acceptable option and a more reasonable solution. The girl asked what he would do in such a case. Kirsten said that in any case, he had offered a more acceptable option. But Lisa believed that the Lord would not even listen to her then. She emphasized that he had said many times that he was not going to help her. Therefore, the Lord would not even listen to her excuses, and she would have died in the square today. Lisa knew that the emperor wanted Kirsten, his stepbrother, to have an heir. Therefore, the princess would give birth to his son. With tears in her eyes, the girl begged him to simply use her. The Lord confirmed that he was very uncomfortable with being terrorized by the birth of a son. The girl believed that their agreement could be beneficial for both of them. The man asked if she was really ready for this. Lisa agreed. The man asked if she understood the seriousness of the situation and the consequences of pregnancy from a creature like him. The birth of the child could lead to its death, as had happened to his mother. He was very disturbed and moved by Lisa's selflessness and willingness to even die to give birth to Kirsten's son. Although in reality, it was a desperate desire to save herself. The Lord asked if the decision had been made consciously. After all, the girl could be very mistaken in her expectations of a bright future and a peaceful life. It might not be worth it. He was amazed when he looked at the princess. How could she maintain the appearance of an innocent, noble girl when she could offer him such a thing? The girl apologized for daring to defile his nobility. The Lord said that he would never refuse to help her, but he did not support her decision. However, in her place, he would have done the same. She could have shared information about the dragons or the secrets of Arkan. The man wondered if it would have been better to choose a more noble death. After all, such a death was fitting for a princess of a once powerful country who had lost everything she had in battle. Lisa thought that Sir Kirsten believed her actions were wrong and unworthy. Indeed, what could she do now? The princess had no control over her fate or what was happening around her. Even if she returned to Arkan, she would not be able to rebuild it. But she remembered her brother's words, who assured her that the most important thing for her now was to survive. In that case, Arkan would survive the storms. Lisa could not simply give up after hearing those words. She felt like an extraordinary woman. The girl knew how to use magic, and that could help her in her plan to give birth to a half-dragon heir. The Lord declared that he truly had no desire to keep a woman who resisted him and could not control herself. And so he gave her until tomorrow to think it over. Then everything would be decided. The princess said that there was no need for that. Her decision was final. She was not going to change her mind because she had no other choice. The decision was up to Kirsten. The Lord stood before the emperor. His Majesty listened to Kirsten's servant and asked his stepbrother if he had really spent the night with Princess Arcana. The Lord asked if it counted that they had slept in the same bed. The emperor was glad that his brother had succeeded. He emphasized that Kirsten had paused for 5 seconds, which meant that he was hiding something. Besides, they had spent the entire journey together, so something must have happened. Kirsten asked his servant what he had told the emperor. Reuben replied that he had simply told him everything he had heard and seen. He had simply told him that Kirsten and Lisa had been together for almost 2 months. His Majesty on the throne ordered that no one should try to hide anything from him. He knew perfectly well about the Lord's visit to the imprisoned princess. After all, the man wanted to know what had happened to his pregnant girlfriend. Kirsten asked why he had been questioned about all this if the answer was so obvious. The emperor said that he had sent a doctor from her homeland, Arcana, to the princess. He was to look after her, and the doctor's conclusion would be the final verdict in this case. He had to put an end to this story. And there was one more question to be answered. Was the child really Reget's? The Lord asked what exactly His Majesty meant. The emperor replied that the girl had indeed been outside the palace for some time, and a lot could have happened there, and one must be absolutely sure. The emperor began to talk about the rumors concerning Lisa and her brother. Kirsten said that the nobleman was spreading lies about his future wife. to which the emperor replied that it was worse when she lied to him. The ruler said that when he found out about Lisa's deception, he would see to her slow and painful death. He would give her to Prince Ugel, then she would surely go through hell. The Lord said that, in his opinion, the princess was not the kind of woman or girl who was prone to indiscriminate relationships with men. She was a decent and noble lady, and her health did not contribute to this. Kirsten said that his fiancé had never been in the arms of another man. He was sure of this. Anyone who thought otherwise was simply a liar trying to defile Lisa. The Lord believed that sometimes fate simply mocks people. He couldn't believe that the girl he had dreamed of embracing since their first meeting would become his bride, and he could save her from death. After talking to the emperor, the Lord went to the tower where Lisa was being held. His servant tried to stop him, but it was useless. He tried to calm himself and think about the future. The doctor told the girl that her heartbeat was very weak. She didn't mean to say anything bad, but that's how the hearts of those who are close to death beat. Lisa assured her that it had always been like that. The girl lay in bed and thought that the next day her lie would be exposed. The doctor took all the necessary tests and would tell the emperor tomorrow that Lisa was not pregnant. The girl had only gained a day. She had a dream. Lord Kirsten came to her. She recoiled from him because he did not want to help her anyway and did not even dare to protect her from his majesty. So why did he come? The girl was sure that she only brought suffering, and she had to die to keep Lord Kirsten safe. She did not count on his help. She cared about him. And if her lie was revealed, he would have to let her end her life by suicide so that she would not fall victim to the enemies of her native country. She wanted this night to never end. Kerr sat silently next to Lisa. In the morning, Lisa was awakened by a servant. She introduced herself as Vesa. From now on, she would be her maid and would constantly accompany and help her mistress. She was ordered to obey all of Lisa's commands. The princess asked who had given her these orders. The girl was surprised by the question. It was obvious that the order had come from the Duke. Lisa wondered why someone who was soon to die on the scaffold would need a servant. After all, Lisa would soon become Lord Kirsten's wife. What no one could have even imagined would come true. The Archduke was finally getting married, and he was marrying Princess Arcana. The union was to be blessed by the gods. The Duke came to his bride. He asked how she was feeling, as Lisa had been in bed for several days. The princess was upset and had taken to her bed from exhaustion. The girl was impressed by his devotion. The princess was amazed that she was still alive. Kirsten replied that the emperor had summoned him several days ago and was interrogating him. He was tired of justifying himself to his brother, but it was a sacrifice for Lisa's sake. The Lord said that for her sake, he was willing to endure long summons to the imperial court for the sake of the princess's peace and safety. After all, he expected that the girl would truly be the solution to his problem. According to legend, Lisa's veins flowed with the blood of the descendants of a hero who had once defeated a dragon. And Kirsten was a child in whom the blood of two different races, humans and dragons, was mixed. She was the only one who could deal with him. The Duke assured her that Lisa could feel safe. The doctor who examined her had been bribed. The emperor believed that Kirsten had spent the night with the princess on their way back to Benella. The girl thanked him for saving her. The Lord assured her that it was a contract beneficial to both parties. It was just a marriage contract on mutually beneficial terms for all participants. The problem was that they had only 6 months to conceive a child. After all, the emperor could come up with something and begin to suspect the conspirators and uncover the secret. The Duke assured her that if the situation got out of control, he would reveal the truth to the ruler. He would also take the blame so that his beloved would not suffer. She would have some time to escape. Lisa noticed how her husband had changed during the time they had spent together. He behaved rather coldly, but in reality he was very kind and caring. He protected his beloved from adversity. The princess asked if Kirsten would be comfortable with a woman who was very inexperienced in this matter. The Duke was stunned by such a frank question. The girl asked him not to send her away and not to scold her. The Lord tried to joke. He said that it was good that his wife knew where babies came from and did not think that they just fell from the sky. But they did not have a clear list of their duties. The doctor ordered them to make love 5 times a month. That came to a total of 30 times in 6 months. The girl suggested doubling that number to ensure results. The Duke was surprised. Kerr suggested not counting the times, but simply writing that they should make love whenever possible and whenever they felt like it. It shouldn't feel like homework for either of them. Lisa counted the days she'd left. 1 day's delay stretched into 6 months for her, but now she had 9 more months. The Duke said that if she got scared, she could run away. But the princess thought differently. She understood that during this time, she had to come up with a plan for the future or run away later. From that moment on, she couldn't waste a single minute. A few days later, Lisa and Kirsten stood in the throne room. They were about to get married. The girl thought that if her brother saw this, he would go mad. Andre had promised to find her the best match on the continent. Her husband was to be kind and decent, and all his thoughts were to be of Lisa. Her wedding day was supposed to be the best day of her life. She would be the most beautiful bride on the entire continent. The priest assured them that as a servant of God, he supported their promises and sanctified them. And now they had to exchange kisses to confirm their true intentions and vows to each other. The emperor watched the ceremony. Before the wedding, the Duke asked why he should marry, since the birth of a child would be the greatest proof of his ability to produce an heir. His Majesty assured him that the birth of a child out of wedlock would dishonor Kirsten and his wife. Therefore, it was necessary to go through with the ceremony. But it would still be better if Lady Benella became his wife. The Duke's personal affection for Princess Arcana played a huge role. If it weren't for that, things would have turned out very differently. It was obvious that Lisa had seduced the Lord only to survive. The Duke really felt as if he were under a spell. He understood that it was difficult to evoke real feelings in his bride. There was no love between them, only a pure calculation that was beneficial to both. The girl suggested they pretend to kiss, but the Duke insisted on a real kiss. He did not understand what had happened to him. Was it instinct, or an impulsive act, or was it a desire to possess Lisa? Immediately after the wedding ceremony, the Duke and his wife left for their estate. Lisa and her servant discussed the wedding. The princess listened as the servant spoke enthusiastically about her. The maid assured her that throughout the ceremony, the knights and gentlemen present had been watching Princess Arcana closely. She had impressed and captivated everyone with her beauty and enchanting dress. The Duke stopped the carriage. He suggested that his wife get out and take a walk in the woods. The sun was shining brightly, and he wanted Lisa to breathe some fresh air and relax in nature for her health. Kirsten suggested that she put on a hood so that the sunlight would not shine on his bride's face. The girl protested that she would not be able to see where she was going, but the Duke assured her that he would guide her. They rode through the forest. The Lord said that a walk in the woods would be good for Lisa. Next time, she should spend less time in the carriage and relax in the fresh air. She should just ask. Lisa replied that she had spent a lot of time in the carriage when she lived in her kingdom. That's why she felt more comfortable inside than outside. It seemed as if she were under arrest. Lisa remembered the past. She was sure that her brother loved her. When he returned to the palace, they would walk for a long time in the garden that grew in the fortress. Those days were special to her. The girl remembered the walks in the garden for a long time, although she usually fell ill immediately after them. Suddenly, she stopped. Lisa realized that she was fine, even though she had been outside for a long time and had been in prison. The princess couldn't understand how the wounds from the shackles had disappeared so quickly. It was impossible to believe. She became healthier in terms of physical health, but how could this have happened to her? Kirsten thought that this girl was too fragile. She was in poor health. And how was she going to give birth to a half-dragon? Even the chains had left marks on her hands, even though she had only been in them for a short time. The Duke suggested stopping at the nearest village to rest. Lisa agreed. She was worried that the Lord might get tired. The servant who heard this became seriously agitated. The girl said that she had a strange feeling that someone was following them from the bushes. She asked the Lord to stop the horse and the entire retinue because there was something unknown and dangerous ahead. An arrow flew a few inches in front of Lisa. The Duke ordered everyone to prepare for defense. He would lead the princess's defense while Ruin watched over her. The enemies were hiding in the forest. A hail of arrows rained down on the Duke's retinue. Reuben ordered Lisa and her maid to get into the carriage. Although the protection from arrows was weak there, it was still better than being out in the open. Lisa asked Sir Reuben and all her defenders not to touch the arrows. She recognized this weapon. When the princess fled Arkan, the Ugal tribes shot her servants with these poisonous arrows. Lisa remembered her brother's last words. He had told her about the properties of magic circles. Using their energy, she could defend herself and attack. The girl touched the magic circle and activated her mana. Prince Ugaria emerged from the forest. He couldn't believe that Lisa had activated a protective barrier. The Duke didn't know that his wife possessed such powers. Prince Ugal asked if Kirsten really didn't know about her magical abilities. The prince asked him to give up Princess Arkna and give her to him. He didn't think that a half-dragon could fall in love. Kirsten became angry with the barbarian, and then he promised to leave his country. The Duke turned into a monster. He asked why the barbarian wanted the princess, but it didn't matter. He was burning with rage. Kirsten asked who they were if they dared to attack the Knights of Rotier. The world and everything around them was red with the barbarian's blood. Uguel warned him that the silver fox from Arkna would bring him to his knees. He had found his doom, and his final resting place awaited him. Sliga looked into the carriage. She said that everything was calm outside. It was quiet and peaceful. The Duke and his knights had repelled the treacherous ambush. The girl must have been very frightened, thought the servant. They were so engrossed in conversation that they did not notice one of the enemies who had managed to survive approaching them. The barbarian gathered all his strength and pushed the carriage off the cliff. Reuben reported that the barbarian who had survived the battle had crept up and pushed the carriage. This happened immediately after the princess removed the protective force shield from her retinue. Her Majesty saved the maid. Reuben felt guilty that he had not managed to save the princess. He decided to go down into the valley and at least find the princess's body. There could be enemy survivors nearby, so he would go alone. The Duke considered that perhaps it would be better for his wife to die now. After all, she would die anyway when she was torn apart by her half-dragon child who would tear her body apart. Reuben was still waiting for orders from his master. The Duke thought that it would be better for the girl to drown in the lake. After all, her death would be tragic in any case. It would be better for her to pass away peacefully. The princess could not believe that God had decided that she should die this way. It would be better to die at the hands of the executioner in Benelli. But her thirst for life and royal blood told her not to give up. The memory of her brother and his sacrifice for her prompted Lisa to activate the magic circle. She couldn't just die like this, drowning in the lake. It was worth fighting for her life. The Duke must already be looking for her and coming to her rescue. Kier reached his beloved just in time. He understood that he simply could not live without her. Lisa's blue eyes haunted him, and now he understood that he could not live without this woman. The princess noticed the Lord's agitation. The people who had just almost lost each other sat on the riverbank. They truly loved each other. A spark flew between them, and now they could forget about their agreement because love had come. Lisa remembered a scene from her childhood. Andre was standing next to the bed where his sick sister lay. The doctor told his brother that it was a miracle that the princess had survived. He did not know what had happened to her, but she was on the verge of death. As a child, Lisa had always envied her healthy younger brother. He could walk freely and go out on the street, travel, and take care of the royal family's affairs. She wanted to be like him. The girl said that she really didn't want to be sick. Lisa said that her hair got lighter every time she was sick, so it would soon turn completely white. Her brother assured her that his sister was beautiful. The girl hid her illness for a long time, and every meeting or walk was very painful for her and had disastrous results. Lisa reached the point where even her soul ached. The doctor advised her to take medicine, but he warned that in large doses, this drug could be poisonous to her weakened body. The girl understood that her life would never be the same again. Andre held his sister in his arms. He blamed himself for her fragile health. The prince cried and begged his sister not to leave him alone. The boy fell into despair. The prince decided to engrave magical circles on his sister's body. He asked her if she was ready to endure a little pain. The girl assured him that she was ready for anything. Andre was going to share his power with Liza. From that moment on, Andre continued to draw circles on his sister's body. He was sure that this would provide powerful protection for his loved one and would be able to protect the girl from misfortune. Kier brought his wife to the guest house. There he examined her body and made sure that she was completely fine. The knight did not understand how she had survived. The girl said that it was magic. The Duke was angry. He told his assistant that the Knights of Routier would be punished. They had failed in their task and would therefore receive their just punishment. The knights had become a band of cowards. Lisa asked him not to be too harsh on the knights. The Lord replied that she should not worry about it. The princess's maid had been injured when the carriage fell, so the Duke himself would serve the girl. The girl was embarrassed. She replied that there were some things she felt uncomfortable doing in front of a man. The Lord replied that sleeping in the same room with a man was not scary. The Lord gently hugged his wife. He assured her that Lisa should take a bath because her body was very cold. The man was going to undress his wife himself. She did not refuse. The princess couldn't refuse. Her husband assured her that he was very concerned about her condition and couldn't let Lisa get sick and be bedridden again. His heart was uneasy. The girl understood that sooner or later this would happen to her. She had to learn to live with it. After all, they were planning to have a child soon, so everything was fine. She just had to get used to it. The Lord undressed his wife, and the girl thought about how that time, by the lake, just like with the soldier who had attacked them in the camp, she had felt as if a force had simply burst out of her. She was examining her body to understand what had happened to her. What powerful magic Andri had sealed inside her by drawing magic circles. The Duke ordered her to call him if she needed anything. The man was still standing by the tub of water. Lisa asked if he was angry with her. His voice and behavior seemed to have become more angry and evil. The girl blamed herself for what had happened. The Lord assured her that he was not angry, and the girl's words about her causing problems were far from reality. She wasn't causing him any problems, and that was the truth. He added that they had a contract, and he was just taking care of his wife, who was supposed to give birth to his successor and heir. It was a mutually beneficial care for a partner with whom you have a relationship. Kirsten blamed himself only for not being able to protect his wife. He was worried about how she might suffer or die. Deep down, the Lord couldn't forgive himself for failing. On top of all this, he had unleashed his dark side. It wasn't because he hated the prince or the country of Ugal. Kirsten just felt really bad about how greedy the prince was for his bride. The Duke was torn apart by conflicting emotions. He even calmed down when the carriage fell into the water. But then horror overwhelmed him. He couldn't believe that his man would just disappear. The princess asked if he really didn't care. Kirsten said that of all those under his protection and care, the princess was the most precious person to him. That was true before, and it would remain true. So she need not worry. The Lord assured her that he had lost everything that was dear to him in his time. And now he had a certain support in life. And now he could not lose the princess who was dear to him. Besides, there was a contract. The girl understood that she could have drowned in that lake, but the Duke saved her. Until now, it had been a mystery to her. Lisa asked Kirsten not to trust her to anyone else. She wanted protection only from him. The girl was asleep. Kirsten looked at his wife. It remained a mystery to him why the girl remained so cold. No matter how much he hugged her, she still remained cold. The Duke lay down on the bed. He placed the girl's body on his stomach and chest. Lisa woke up. The situation was a little unusual and upset the princess. She was in this position for the first time. The girl felt something hot and hard. She was confused, but the prince asked her to think of it as preparation. The girl was afraid to move, so the Duke took the initiative into his own hands. Lisa whispered softly in the Duke's ear that he wanted this so much, and she was ready to give him the warmth and tenderness he craved. That moment almost broke down all the walls between the two lovers. The princess said she felt a little uncomfortable, but Kirsten insisted that she had to endure it a little. After all, he couldn't control the process. The man promised to be gentle with the girl. The Duke was actually very careful. He tried to do everything gently and not too hard. He didn't want to hurt the girl. Lisa was the best thing that had ever happened to him and would ever happen to him. A week later, Duke Kirsten's retinue arrived in Routier. This was where the journey was to end. The maid was happy for her sick but kind mistress, who would no longer have to suffer. The duchy was located in a region where there was no cold or harsh winter. The maid told her about the peculiarities of the local climate. It was precisely because of the very good weather conditions that the territory was so valuable. The girl understood that this would be her home for the next 6 months. Everyone in the palace prepared for the arrival of the new mistress. The servants waited at the door, bowing their heads low. The Duke asked the butler if anything terrible had happened. The man assured him that he had reported all serious problems in his letters. The butler's name was Alfredo, and he had served the Duke's father. Following the butler, Reget's assistant, Sir Sobert, addressed his master. He told the lord that there were documents waiting for him that still needed to be signed. He was a businessman and a loyal treasurer. Everyone stepped aside as an elderly woman approached Kirsten. She greeted the master with a warm welcome. It was the head maid of the Pettinson Palace. She said that she had recently received a message from Sir Reuben. The woman happily asked the alarmed Kirsten if the mistress of the palace, Routier, had finally arrived with him. Everyone around exhaled with relief. They understood that the woman, as always, had gotten straight to the point. Those present understood that the rumors were true. His Highness had married and had not told anyone. The subjects rejoiced that the Duke finally had a faithful companion for life. But they would celebrate later. The head maid of the palace said that His Highness had even gone into conflict with the Emperor for the sake of this marriage. And this woman was going to see who the girl really was. The Duke was finally going to see the castle and show it to his wife. He suggested that Lisa rest and go explore the estate. Lisa assured him that he could take care of his business first. The girl suggested that Sir Reuben accompany her so she wouldn't get lost. But Kirsten forbade the knight from doing so. After all, he had failed to protect Lisa from the barbarians in the past. Lisa wondered what dangers might await her in this castle, since the Duke kept his enemies far away and no one would dare to do anything. Even if it was safe here, the servants were still unfamiliar with her. The girl said firmly that it was finally time for the servants to learn how to serve her. After all, the Duke could not always be at her side, carrying out her orders and whims. Lisa said that the Duke could not run to her at her slightest whim. The servants who overheard the conversation thought about the stubbornness of their new mistress. Only the headmaid was dissatisfied. The girl calmly replied that there were some things she preferred to do herself, and for this she needed female servants who understood the issues that would arise. She felt a little uncomfortable. Kirsten replied that it was not his duty, but his desire to help and protect her, and if her conscience bothered her, she could rest assured. Everything he did was for her own good and for her peace of mind. The girl still wanted the butler to help her. She had to assume her rights as the ruler and deal with the affairs that were under her authority. She wanted to look around the hall and go to her room. Alfredo assured her that he would show her everything she needed and introduce her to all the servants who worked in the palace. The man suggested that she rest and have lunch first. The lord was dissatisfied with the arbitrariness. The Duke ordered that his wife be treated with respect and that everything she asked for be done. Everyone should treat his wife as if she were him. After all, she would not be a duchess for long. Alfredo told her that enemies often attack these lands, so special buildings were constructed to help defend against them. That is why the bedroom was located in the tower. Lisa understood that these lands could be considered blessed. There was complete harmony and respect for everyone here. The enemy attacks ended with an era of peace and order throughout the Duke's lands. But the girl could not let her guard down. After all, it was at times like these that one could fall into a trap or some kind of trouble. Since childhood, she'd considered the world to be safe and peaceful. The girl did not yet fully understand how to behave and where she'd ended up. This place could become another battlefield for her life. The lord came to check on Lisa. The Duke took his wife in his arms and carried her to the bedroom. He wanted to help the princess because she could hurt herself on these steep stairs. And he would never forgive himself if something happened to Lisa. It would be difficult for him to conduct business because he would be constantly distracted, worrying about how his beloved was doing. The girl had no intention of resisting Kirsten. After all, he loved her. The bedroom was located very high up, and the Duke spent a lot of time climbing up there. He had never spent an hour getting to the bedroom before, but he was satisfied. Lisa was resting in her bedroom when her husband left her to go about his business. The maid said that the head maid and the housekeeper of the entire palace were coming to see the new mistress. Rebecca brought several maids with her to help Lisa. The girl was surprised by the number of servants she needed. She could have managed with just her maid. The head maid said that they had all received the necessary training and would therefore serve Lisa very well. The girl replied that she would manage with just one maid. Rebecca did not like this very much. Rebecca, in turn, asked her to trust her and not to keep her at a distance or refuse her help. After all, the head maid was concerned about her condition due to the long journey to the Duke's lands. The woman said that considering who her master really was, the journey would be very exhausting for Lisa. Therefore, she should not refuse such necessary help. In order to monitor the girl's health and condition, Rebecca brought in the chief physician, Dr. Rouault. He was to examine Lisa and monitor her condition throughout her stay at the castle. The head maid put pressure on Lisa. She said that the Duke was very busy with his affairs, which had piled up during his absence. Therefore, the girl should be examined. Lisa understood that this was the maid's own decision. After all, since the doctor did not know for sure that the Duchess was not pregnant, Regret should not have increased the number of people who knew about it. The maid suspected something and wanted to find out everything for herself. She was trying to outlive her master's new wife. However, the woman's true intentions were unclear. The girl insisted on waiting for her personal doctor. Besides, she wanted to rest and unpack her things. It was difficult for her to go for a medical examination right away after the journey. The doctor and the maid insisted on their own. They argued that they cared deeply about their mistress. Lisa realized that she should not trust anyone in this palace. The girl agreed to the proposal. After all, if she continued to refuse, she could arouse suspicion on the part of the maid and the doctor. But the princess's condition was deplorable. The doctor said that he could not say anything for sure at the moment, but that he would take some tests from Lisa and make a conclusion based on the results. However, Vesa came to her mistress's defense. The girl was very indignant at the behavior of the servants. Vesa shouted that the maid and the doctor did not even give her time to rest. One cannot be so frivolous and stubborn, and the tests would take a long time. Vesa said that postponing the medical examination for a few hours would not change the situation. Now the maid Rebecca and the doctor could go about their business. When they were needed, they would be called. Lisa said she did not expect such behavior from a respectable lady who held such a high position in the palace. The Duke's wife would certainly inform her husband about the order that had prevailed here in his absence. Rebecca and the doctor bowed low. They apologized for their unworthy behavior. The servants were ready to accept whatever punishment Lisa would offer them. The princess emphasized that only Vesa would serve her. The girl did not like having a bunch of maids following her around. Lisa would be fine without a large number of servants. Of course, as long as the Duke's reputation did not suffer. The princess asked Rebecca if she fully understood what Lisa had told her. The woman replied that she understood the order and was ready to take all the maids away so that they would not disturb the girl. Vesa said that it was necessary to tell Kirsten Reggett about this incident. After all, the servants were not ready to accept their new mistress. Therefore, they needed to be taught proper manners. It was obvious that all of Lisa's servants had been sent by the senior maid. There were almost no people on her side. Rebecca suspected her of something and tried to do her own thing. There was a huge possibility that when Rebecca found out that Lisa was not pregnant, she would immediately write a letter to the emperor telling him everything. This could not be allowed to happen. Lisa had to find someone who would defend her. The only person she could think of was her loyal maid, Veta. The princess reminded her of how she had saved Veta. Veta said that she would never forget what her mistress had done for her. Lisa suggested that she change masters. The princess did not force her to betray the Duke, but to help her. Lisa told her about the senior maid who was trying to spy on her mistress. The Duke's wife told her maid her secret. The maid did not expect such a turn of events. The chief physician of the imperial court arrived at Kirsten's residence. She reported that the girl needed rest and care. Then she would recover very quickly. There was no cause for concern. The doctor described the peculiarities of pregnancy with a half-dragon. The fetus was devouring its mother. When it grows to the size of a child, it becomes very active. Although Lisa was an unusual case, but dragon embryos, like the embryos of other monsters, behave in the same way. A mortal woman who conceived a child from a dragon would be left without a womb, even if she managed to carry the child to term. The mother, from whom the creature sucked all the nutrients, would have no strength left to give birth to the child. Therefore, the child tears open its mother's womb and climbs out on its own. Lisa understood the Duke's words. The girl asked the doctor what she should be wary of during pregnancy and when mating with a dragon. The woman advised her to be careful during the period when the anger and rage of the dragon Samiti break into our world. Then the monster begins to kill everything around him. Therefore, His Highness is often distracted from home by expeditions. He cannot be near his loved ones at such times. This mania will not go away until he drinks enough blood or his victims satisfy his bloody lust. Dragons are also very insistent when it comes to sexual intercourse. Vesa refused to allow her new mistress to enter into such a relationship with a dragon. This definitely shouldn't happen, or Lisa will die. The girl asked the princess to think before doing anything. The woman told him everything she had heard and seen. The Duke was surprised by Lisa's courage, but the woman emphasized that his wife, although feeling better, was still not as healthy as a normal woman. The doctor asked the Duke to be gentle and careful with his wife in bed. Leah was unfamiliar with physical pleasures. She had never been with a man and had no idea what it was like. The prince decided to wait a little longer so as not to scare his wife. He had to prepare Leah for the act. Rebecca came to him. She asked for a little attention. Kirsten yelled at the maid. The Duke did not understand how his loyal servant could disobey her master's orders. The woman apologized and was ready to atone for her guilt. She hoped that the young man would do the right thing. Rebecca reminded the Duke of when he was a child. She, in turn, worked as his nanny. The woman emphasized that she was very concerned about the life of her protégé. The Duke had to choose a life partner according to his heart, not just be led by various intrigues and lies. Rebecca asked if His Highness really considered this girl to be his true wife. The woman asked if the rumors circulating in the capital were true. Was the princess really saved from hanging in the capital, and then Kirsten decided to marry her? And Lisa renounced the throne. Rebecca said that if the Duke could deceive His Majesty, she certainly could not deceive her. The maid asked why Kirsten had actually brought this girl to Rotier. The man interrupted Rebecca's angry speech. He said that he had brought the girl with him because he simply wanted to, and even though she was his nanny, she should not exceed her authority. Rebecca said that the Duke had been drawn to people who would become like gods since he was a child. But this was the result of what he had learned in childhood through his self-hatred. The woman advised the Duke to rest in his room. She promised to protect his peace. Rebecca would not give up her attempts to get even and find out the truth for herself. The girl dreamed of her brother. He asked her how she could have done such a thing. After all, as Princess Arcana, she had tied her life to the Duke of Routier, their enemy. Andre ordered her to leave Routier. Lisa woke up. She did not understand why her brother had been silent on the way here, and now he was ordering her to leave the Duke's lands as soon as possible. Moreover, he did not understand that this was her only salvation. The princess saw that the place next to her was empty. She couldn't understand why her husband had decided not to come to her for 3 days to share her bed. Almost a month had passed since the contract was signed. Leah decided to go and check on her husband herself. On the way, she ran into Rebecca. She and the servants told her that the princess should not walk around the palace dressed like that. They would fix everything right away. Lisa commandedly demanded to know if all the servants in the palace had been selected by Rebecca. The woman replied that she had agreed on the candidates with the butler, Alfredo. The woman said that the candidates for Duchess had been sent here by the Emperor to serve as maids. His Majesty was very concerned about how Kirsten Riggett's married life would turn out. That was why the servants here were not simple folk. Lisa thought that if dragons really succumbed so easily to their desires and impulses, then was there already a woman in this palace whom the Duke also held tightly to himself? Kirsten learns that his wife has gone to his office. The servant told him about it and said that she couldn't stop her mistress from doing so. The Duke asked how Lisa was doing. Vesa told him about the princess's sleeping problems. She was often tormented by nightmares. The Duke was surprised because during the entire journey to the roadie, Lisa had not once woken up from a bad dream. The maid said that the princess might have slept so badly because she slept alone every night. That was why her sleep was restless and troubled. Kirsten had been with Lisa the whole way, protecting her. The Duke was already leaving. Vesa called after him that he should be more loyal to his wife and spend more time with her. And now was a good time to be alone with her in her study. Vesa showed the Duke which door to take to his wife. The man thanked her. Various thoughts were running through his head. The main thing was that he did not want to hurt his wife. Kirsten wanted to protect and love her. Kirsten was only surprised by the door leading directly from his office to his wife's bedroom. He had never heard of it before. Lavesa said that Lisa had taken that route. The man became concerned. Lisa thanked Sir Reuben for helping her on the stairs, which were even steeper than all the others in the palace. The man was embarrassed and said it was his duty. The Duke would never fail to come to the aid of his beloved.